Always glad to be joined by the Speaker of the House, Charles McCall. I think that does not look like the state capitol in the background there. I think you're on home turf.
Man, I'm glad to be home, Scott. It's nice to have session behind us, finished within the constitutional timeline, and it's I'm so thankful to be back with my constituents and my family.
Okay, Toka, Oklahoma is one of those little treasures, and I've had the pleasure of being there. The great things going on in that community. You got Reba's place down there now. It's
Yeah,
and people understand this. I know we've talked about this before. Being a lawmaker, I'm from a family of folks who serve in the legislature. It's not a few month job. It's every single day. Constituents want to talk to you with their problems, and sometimes that happens on the weekends, happens at nights. But what's it like? And I think I know what the answer is going to be. What's it like to be able to finish a really busy session and then go home?
well, it's a great feeling to have the work accomplished, have a productive session, but it's also good to go home, and I think that's and see the people who elected you, reconnect with them on a day to day basis. Just finished a town hall meeting here in Atoka earlier today on session wrap up. It's great to see all the things that have been going on the last 4 months. From you mentioned Reba's to Starbucks opening almost completed here in Atoka, and Arby's and a bunch of other things. It's a lot of exciting things going on. It's good to be home and get back into that private sector swing of things.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad everybody's great in Atoka. It is. I mean, we've seen Atoka in the New York Times recently in a good way, and
Yeah.
so that's always great. Okay, at the end of a session, there is a limited amount of media. A lot of people head for vacation. There's a million stories, not a million people to cover them.
Yeah.
So, if you could just give us just a moment at a 10,000 foot level about what happened at the end of the session. I know we've seen a little bit of commentary what happened, but it takes a while to digest. And then the second half of our conversation today, Mr. Speaker, talk about what's upcoming. But let's start with what you think got done, what you're happy about, and some things that you would change.
Well, first of all, let's just hit the high points for our viewers that just want to know you know not 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 the inside baseball, but what was accomplished. What does this session mean for the people of the state of Oklahoma? Number one, education was the big priority again this year. Great year to take that on, non-election year, but take on it really a transformational type of education package this year. Took a lot of time. Bottom line, largest single investment in education in our state's history, includes $625 million for public education to our 517 school districts throughout the state of Oklahoma, up to a $6,000 teacher pay raise based upon the number of years that you've served. Nothing, no less than 3,000, and it doesn't matter what you're making today. That's stacked on top of what you're currently making. Also paired with that, a tax credit for families that decide to educate children through private schools. That which is a very smart way to address that. You're not taking money away from public funding for private schools. You're just allowing those parents that utilize that alternative of education method to get a tax credit on their Oklahoma State income taxes. We've addressed drought relief. We've addressed broadband again this year. The broadband office is fully assembled. The director's been hired. They are rolling out the rural broadband to the state, first in areas that aren't served. I'm seeing signs of that already out here in southeast Oklahoma. We've hit workforce this year, and we even did some tax relief this year. We We ended the marriage penalty in our tax code this year, which will help several Oklahomans that are currently paying marginally a little bit higher tax monies every year filing married and jointly. We corrected that. We eliminated the franchise tax. We did not get the Senate to take up a personal income tax. The House wanted to see that done. That's one of the things left unfinished on the table. It's the third session the House has put that forth. The Senate has not yet decided to put that up for a vote yet. And, the governor's still pushing for that, as well as the House. And I hope that will be coming up. But it was a great session. We went the full distance. We sine-died the last Friday of May 26th. But we got everything done. And I appreciate the legislature. They really rolled up their sleeves, worked hard through some tough issues this year.
You folks are all working on the art of the possible, and a lot got done, obviously. A couple of
So
things.
Scott, there's the right way, there's the wrong way, and then there's the Oklahoma way.
Okay.
And the education this year felt like the Oklahoma way. And I'm glad we got that done.
It was a path not taken often, but from a legacy standpoint, things that have happened. I taped my weekend show with Leader Pfeiffer. It was talking about it's a lot of money put into education. When you just look at in context to the past, it's an enormous amount of new revenue into education.
Scott, for those who would question the amount of the priority for education in the state of Oklahoma, I'd point out over the last 5 years, we've increased public education funding now 52% to the tune of $1.4 billion. Prior to that, you'd have to look at the previous 25 years to get to $1.4 billion in public ed investment. We're still running in the top third of the region in teacher pay, but we're in third place. We're not in second, even with this teacher pay raise. So there are competitive pressures out there. There are educational outcomes that the legislature wants to see achieved. And workforce issues that we're trying to combat currently and in the future, all of that kind of dovetails into this education package.
And I want to get to the to-do list that's still out there that has to be dealt with pretty soon. But I wanted a couple of things. One was you had mentioned it, and I want to take just a second. Nobody has led on broadband more than you, and this has been a several-year effort, and you have done yeoman's work on this to get it to this point. Mike Sanders, former Representative Sanders, the majority leader in the House, is now over at broadband. And there's quite a bit of money that the federal government has provided for this.
Yes.
Take just a moment, and you're talking about workforce and education. How does this, in your vision, and it's a several-year vision, how does the broadband, what's about to happen with the broadband office, how important is that to Oklahoma? Workforce, education, healthcare, you name it.
Well, it's critical to rural Oklahoma on several fronts. Not just, there is always going to be a workforce component. Remote work is something that is very prevalent. Maybe not to a high degree in this state, but it will continue to be. For rural Oklahoma, there's so many services and commerce, day-to-day activities that are and applications that are on that require broadband, telecommunications to access. And though there's a great part of the state that does not have access to speeds that are adequate to handle day-to-day commerce, much less things in the realm of education, bottlenecks that we saw during the pandemic, and government services, more and more efficiencies within government are being found by utilizing broadband and telecommunications technologies to deliver. So these are this is an effort that will really allow our state to take a big stride forward, give it greater options, and the rural parts of the state will be much more closely connected to the urban centers of our state, which will be a positive and more cohesive situation than we have.
let me also ask you before we get to the to-do list, there was a lot of items on the table dealing with our state, talking about competitive advantage and dealing with things like recruitment efforts, for example. That was part of the legislature's trying to say, I'm going to have to edit this. At the very end of the legislative session, there were still a lot of balls in the air dealing with recruiting corporations to Oklahoma. There were different funds. I'm not sure that the public is really sure about what has happened on that sense. There's so much at the end of the session, and the House was very involved in that. Can you give us some idea where we're at on some of these projects that Commerce, the governor, were chasing, and the House's involvement in helping close those deals?
Absolutely, Scott. State of Oklahoma landed a very big company, 1,500 jobs, $1.5 billion manufacturing plant for a company called Enel, who will be doing some manufacturing up in the northeast part of the state. This is going to be a 1,500 job type company. That's probably the largest we've landed so far. You've still got, we're using quality jobs, investment tax credit to land those here. And those are available to any company that currently exists in the state of Oklahoma. But we're super excited that they chose to locate here in Oklahoma. Also, Project Josie is right there on the cusp. We set aside an additional $145 million for site prep for them as the executive finalizes the deal with them. That's a $5.5 billion plant investment in the state of Oklahoma with 4,000 jobs. So those are huge wins for the state of Oklahoma. Those are historic wins. Part of this, we've also done some other one-time efforts with the surpluses that we have. We have $200 million set aside for rural road infrastructure in the state of Oklahoma, starting to focus on those 2-lane roads with no shoulders in the state of Oklahoma. Those are the most dangerous highways and roads in the state of Oklahoma. We've got $200 million in addition to the ODOT 8-year money plan set aside to start working in those areas. And they'll start with areas that are in the rural parts of the state that are experiencing high economic activity, such as Broken Bow, Oklahoma, Hochatown, McCurtain County, Idabel, all those in McCurtain County. And so you really have a budget picture here that really hits on a lot of different fronts, puts one-time investments into major infrastructure throughout the state, including water and wastewater systems, highways, roads, and bridges. Those things that you can really build on in the future for the state economically.
Last question. There is a concurrent session going on. The governor is still taking a look at signing bills. There's still some budget aspects out there. Give us an understanding, if you would, sir, about what is actually on your to-do list when the legislature comes back to town in this special session.
Well, they actually passed a sine die resolution before we left the constitutional session, ending the special session on June 30th. Now we have the option to come back in. We'll see what the governor does on some of the legislation sent to his desk. If there's not a reason to come back in, we do not have to go back in to close out the special session. But waiting to hear and see what he's going to do with the budget bills, if he's going to sign those, let them become law, or if he's going to use his pen to line item some things within the budget. We'll take a look at those and decide whether or not we need to come back.
So it is not cut and dried that the legislature would come back to special session. It might not happen if there's not a disagreement.
Yeah, there's a couple of bills that the Senate they were not able to pass for the budget agreement. There's a couple of bills left in the House that we did not hear. We'll be talking with the Senate to see if they want to come back in on the 12th to take those up or determine if we're done or not.
Okay, so to be decided, in other words.
Yeah, we've got some options there, but no later than June 30th, the session will close down. And if we do utilize it, I don't see us utilizing it more than one day. So we'll see how things shake out.
Okay, well, Mr. Speaker, thanks for the update. It was a long one. We had a lot of business to take care of, but really appreciate your time.
Absolutely, Scott. Hey, thank you. It's been a great session. Enjoyed being with you again this session and look forward to the next one.
See you soon.
See you.